So, Mark, let's come to you now. And the World Health Organization, what's the latest?
Well, it's more about the Associated Press, the illustrious wire service that's been misinforming America largely and the world for over a century. And what we just heard, of course, was the media largely ignoring things about COVID. But here we have media meddling. And this is becoming a pandemic in and of itself, you might say, an informational pandemic. Here we have the article from September 1st, Associated Press, woman describing, they know what a woman is. That's a good step, right? Woman describing pandemic plans for a soft coup is not a WHO representative. So this is one of their fact-checking articles. The AP is doing these all the time now. And they don't describe right away in the article who the woman they're talking about is. In fact, it takes them 8 or 9 paragraphs to get around to telling you who it is. Now, this is MEP Francesca Donato out of Italy. And it turns out she's not the woman they're talking about, but she's the first speaker on a video that's over 4 hours long from a particular event. And that event was a global summit, number 3, held at the European Parliament. And Francesca Donato is the first speaker. There's 22 speakers at that recent summit that was held at the Brussels, Belgium European Parliament back in May. And this is where the AP article is coming in. Now, kind of bear with me here. You'd think they were talking about Francesca. She's the first speaker out of some 22 that spoke. And she's a member of the European Parliament, as I noted. She's part of the group Identity and Democracy at the European Parliament. Due to her position against the EU digital COVID certificate in September of 2021, she was expelled from both from Lega Nord and the Identity and Democracy group and became an independent, as well as, I'm not sure what that is, a non...
Inscript.
I don't know. Yeah, member of the European Parliament. On March 2nd of 2022, she voted against condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine, along with 12 other MEPs, after sharing news which were identified as fake news. This is according to Wikipedia. Her Facebook page was closed in March of 2022. So Francesca has been deemed almost persona non grata in MEP circles and other circles by the media. This is a little bit more about her. This is the COVID-19 pandemic lessons learned and recommendations for the future debate. She was involved in that. And on the next slide, we'll learn a little bit more. She's on the special committee on the COVID-19 pandemic, lessons learned and recommendations for the future. So she's a pretty brave lady here that's in the European Parliament. And here's the actual meddlesome Associated Press article itself. And kind of bear with me, I'm kind of coming at this in a circuitous way. Here's the claim. A video shows a World Health Organization representative discussing plans the agency is developing as a way to disregard human rights protections in the name of pandemic preparedness. But the Associated Press assessment is that this is false. The woman in the video does not work for the WHO, nor was she speaking on its behalf. A spokesperson for the United Nations agency told the Associated Press. So the AP is simply taking the word of WHO spokesman as gospel here in declaring, in making its declarations. The spokesperson for the WHO also confirmed that the WHO is not developing any such plans to take away human rights as described in the video. The facts, according to the AP, social media users are sharing select footage from a May 2023 conference featuring multiple speakers. That's this COVID conference that was held in May at the European Parliament, featuring multiple speakers known for spreading what AP is calling COVID-19 misinformation. The video is edited to make it appear the woman, whose credentials are not mentioned, is speaking on behalf of the WHO at a press conference or a gathering of the entire European Parliament. That's absolutely false. I watched most of the video. It's not edited that way at all. There's nothing that makes her look like a WHO representative. And if somebody did put that on social media, that would be incorrect. So that's the only way, and that small way, that the Associated Press would be correct in calling this out. But there was never any actual attempt to make her look like a WHO spokesman. And we'll reveal in a little bit who the actual woman was that the Associated Press is referring to. In the video, the woman sits in front of a blue backdrop that includes the European Parliament logo and the address of its website. She speaks of a soft coup, which she did, that will allow for human rights such as freedom of speech to be disregarded in the name of pandemic preparedness. Among other alleged evidence, she claims that a WHO treaty is part of this plan. Now we'll move on from there. I believe we have a video of Francesca Donato, and keep in mind she's not the woman that's being criticized, but the AP. But when we look at what Francesca has to say and we look at the whole picture, you realize just how much the AP is taking this whole thing out of context and not actually reporting on this recent conference held at the European Parliament. Had they reported on it objectively and broadly, you would see what was actually going on. So this really shows just how much the media is meddling and skewing this issue. So first we'll listen to Francesca. This is a short clip, and then we'll go from there.
As a member of the European Parliament, I want to take the opportunity immediately to focus on a political point, which is of interest of the European institutions. The European Court of Auditors, in its audit of the management of joint purchases of the so-called COVID vaccines, expressly recommended that the Commission review the contractual clauses that shield the multinational manufacturers from any liability for damages due to adverse effects to inoculated people, once final marketing approval is released. With the period of conditional approval for emergency use having ended, therefore, any alibi for relieving the pharmaceutical companies from all responsibility has lapsed after they have been profiting hundreds of billions euros from the sale of these drugs, thanks to millions of euros received in public funding for research and development of them.
So you see, there's very important things being announced here. And yet the Associated Press, even though Francesca is the first speaker, one of about 22 that I counted, they're actually talking about someone else. And in this next slide, they finally reveal 8 or 9 paragraphs later that the woman in the video that they're referring to and criticizing is a doctor from Maine, Meryl Nass, N like Nancy, ASS, whose license was suspended by the state of Maine in January of 2022 for spreading misinformation, AP says, about COVID-19. Margaret Harris, a WHO spokesperson, confirmed that Nass does not work for the agency and that she was not speaking on its behalf at the conference. Again, there was absolutely no indication whatsoever that she tried to claim or anyone else tried to claim in the video of that conference from this past May that she was a WHO representative. And by the way, the official name of that was the International COVID Summit 3, Part 2, 3 in Roman numerals, Part 2. International COVID Summit 3, Part 2, held this past spring. And here in this next slide, we finally look at who the AP is criticizing. Maine physicians suspended for COVID misinformation. Licensing agency says Meryl Nass must undergo neuropsych exam. Get that. Must undergo a neuropsych exam for her claims about COVID vaccine. And a little text I inserted in the lower right here. The Maine Board of Licensure ordered the immediate suspension of the license of a physician, accused of spreading COVID-19 misinformation, and in a separate order Tuesday, ordered her to undergo a neuropsychological evaluation by a board-selected psychologist. And so this is getting very Orwellian, and we'll move on from there. And we have a short clip of what she actually had to say. Now, this isn't everything she had to say. She covered a wide range of things that the COVID pandemic treaty, the international health regulations, digital initiatives for vaccine passports, all of that she feels represents a danger to human rights. She covered a lot of that, but here's an important thing she added and focused on at that recent summit. So we'll show this brief video clip.
One Health is another part of this. One Health is a concept that was created to enable the WHO, with these documents, to take over jurisdiction of everything in the world by saying that climate change, animals, plants, water systems, ecosystems are all central to health. Also embedded in this concept is a peculiar notion that humans are no longer of greater value than animals. And I've got the quote there from the Lancet in January.
And so what she's doing there, gentlemen, is she's corroborating what I and others at UK Column have reported several months ago, that One Health is a philosophical and a strategic, you might say, concept that's hardwired into the WHO's plans for the pandemic treaty and updating the IHR regs. The idea that it's a democratic biosphere and humanity no longer has any special place in that biosphere. And so Meryl Nass is no idiot. You might disagree with her, but you can see this is a classic museum level example, you might say, of how the media does a razor thin slice of reality, presents it as the big picture while ignoring the overall summit and what was said by 22 speakers, including Robert Malone, the American doctor. So this whole thing is just being completely skewed and ignored and papered over, just so they can criticize social media and particular things that appear on social media. Yeah. There is one more thing I can share.
We have to move on, Mark. So thank you very much for that. That is really useful. Now we got to move on because we've got a lot to cover today. So thank you very much for that. If you like what the UK Column does and you'd like to support us, please head over to community.ukcolumn.org. There are options to help us out there. You can pick something up at the UK Column shop. But please do share anything you find on the various platforms, especially ukcolumn.org and ukcolumnextracts.co.uk. Now, tomorrow in the 1 p.m. interview slot, Alex is speaking to Dr. Anna Loutfi, who's speaking about the situation with children and sexual education with children. So get along to that at 1 p.m. tomorrow in the usual place. And very quickly, please, David, what's going on with No to War?
This is my speech from Saturday, 26th of August at Glasgow Green. That will be premiering on the Northern Exposure YouTube channel on Wednesday at 7. I'd ask people to tune in, have a look at that, and let me know in the comments what you think of what I had to say.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. The link for that, of course, will be in the show notes later on under this, once we put this on the website. Now, let's just